Finding the right jeans is hard. Accepting your jeans is even harder.
Whether you wear boyfriend or bootcut, high-rise or low-rise, this podcast will teach you to love the jeans you are in. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Tina. And we're going to use modern research to bust diet myths and get real about body after baby.
We're going to take you on a journey of unpacking your old beliefs about food and weight so you can learn to nourish your body and raise body-confident kids.
So put your booty in a chair and let's talk mom jeans.
Hello, welcome back.
It'd be like the music is bringing us into this moment. And so I'm hearing it in my head and then it transitions and here we are.
Into our beautiful voices. Hello, welcome back. Welcome to episode 2 of the Real Deal series.
Yay.
We sound so official.
We do. Can I give you a little lowdown of what I was previously just doing before this podcast recording to give you the real deal into my life?
Sure.
My husband is out of town, of course.
Again.
What's new? And I live on a lot of property. And when he goes out of town in the summer, that means that I have to cut the grass for our property. And so I was just mowing the lawn.
You literally are wearing a bandana like an actual farmer right now.
Well, because I have to cover it on my face. I have to cover my face. Otherwise,
you've gone so Texas.
This is the only Texas that I'll, right? Okay. That's what I was doing. So I'm a little, now we're on film. We have video.
Well, what's funny is what I was just doing is walking cash back from my car back into my children at camp because they want cash to buy candy at the snack shack. And this was perfect because I literally was like, you guys don't need to have candy right now. I packed you things, but also all the kids are getting candy and they're all bringing cash and I don't want my kids to have a complex. So I'm trekking back into tennis camp with $5 so they can buy Skittles later. So, we're just
expensive Skittles. Jeez.
Well, they better split it.
So here's the real deal.
Anyway.
Rachel and I are on video and we're here. I'm a little sweaty.
All right, so we will get to the topic. Today, we are going to dive into birth expectations. So we've technically done 2 episodes on this topic in the past, much more officially. If you want to dive deeper into those topics and the episodes we've done, go back to episode 19, Your Birth Story, and episode 52, The Pregnancy Myth. We're going to circle back to it, though, today in the Real Deal series, because to be honest, it's been a huge part of Tina's story since we took a pause on the podcast.
Yeah.
And it's really wrapped up in comparison culture, body shaming, because no birthing parent can go through pregnancy and childbirth without a pretty radical close-up look at their relationship with their body. So in the past episodes, we've interviewed experts, we've covered stats and stigmas, and we will review that a bit again today. But mostly, we love stats. We just wanted to share the real stories of what we went through and how to put the pieces together mentally to find healing and peace.
Yeah, I'm very motivated for this episode. There may be some tears, y'all. We're really the real deal here. So we're gonna give you the lowdown. But really, like, what does this have to do with our podcast? People are like, wait, what are you talking about? What does this have to do with your podcast brand? So, Rachel.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the intersection is so layered. It doesn't feel like it's a very direct connection, but it really is, because when it comes to the pregnancy and the birth experience, it's all about body trust, listening to your intuition, advocating for your body, and getting care for your body. And as you know, our podcast is called Mom Genes, and our genetics and predispositions really dictate how we carry our pregnancies or how our bodies respond. I mean, some people carry high or low. It depends whether or not you get stretch marks or high blood pressure, right? So genetics are a huge component in this. And then there's this whole fun layer of our society, which has beliefs that thinner, fitter, younger bodies are superior, and blame anything that isn't perfect on the body or a quote unquote lifestyle, which extends to the pregnant person. So I think this judgment that parents receive that lead them to having to fight to be seen as equal and worthy and get the proper care is really important because a lot of birth traumas relate to being on the receiving end of stigma from the medical community. And it makes us feel very powerless in our bodies.
Yeah.
And then there's also the piece of diet culture, obviously having a lot to say about pregnancy weight, post-baby bounce back bodies, the nutrition elements of pregnancy and breastfeeding.
Don't get me started.
Tina can go on and on about that. So I just really think that overall, our culture has a lot to say about birthing, and it doesn't necessarily hold space for the birthing person's bodily autonomy. We get so much direction, so much contradicting advice. We're often overridden in the birthing room about what our bodies are doing or need. Our bodies are so sacred and vulnerable during this stage. And I think we need to continue to spread the message that it's okay to trust our bodies, to feel empowered, to advocate for what our intuition is communicating to us, and to fight for our mental health.
Yeah.
So personally, that to me is where it all connects.
That's
what about
powerful.
for you?
That's
what about for you as the nutritionist too, and your personal stories?
It's so
what
hard.
Makes you?
And I had a baby, both babies, like as I was a little bit older, right? So like you speaking to the like, have babies when you're young and your body will bounce back and it's going to be amazing and all the things, right? It's like, ugh, I'm like debunking that as we speak. I'm not pregnant. I'm not going to be pregnant, but, so for me, this is where our podcast, the brand really comes from. We're always talking about body autonomy, our agency, rejecting the systems that try to tell us you should feel this way or treat your bodies this way, right? So childbirth is such a raw and powerful example of this. It is one of the few times in our life when our body is doing something monumental, primal, and yet we are surrounded by a culture and medical system that tells us disconnect from that instinct and defer to authority. White coat syndrome, massively here. They are the all and mighty and powerful, and you better do it this way or no way, or you're failing. So I remember feeling like I had to perform a version of motherhood and birth to fit into this specific mold. I had to like manage it well, stay fit and small, and all the things. I had to bounce back and not complain and not struggle.
I always feel like we're basically little rubber balls every time that term gets thrown around. Like,
right?
I don't bounce. Sorry.
I don't bounce at all.
I'm not bouncy.
Absolutely absurd. But this pressure really mirrors what so many people experience in other areas of body image and health. So this is just like a small snippet, but the messages are the same. Be good, be quiet, follow the lead, don't take up too much space. And if something goes wrong, you failed. It's your fault. So really, that's why we wanted to bring up this conversation in our podcast. So birth, like so many other experiences, brings us face to face. I don't know where that came in, face to face with how deeply body shame, ableism, and fat phobia are woven into our care systems. If we're advocating for reclaiming our bodies and listening to them in our everyday life, then of course we need to be talking about what that looks like in pregnancy, in birth, and postpartum. So these moments where trusting your body isn't really just about confidence, it's honestly about survival. And I connect really deeply to that.
Yeah. And I think when you and I have checked in over the years in between the recordings over the years. No, we took a couple year break, right? But Tina and I still stayed friends and we've connected. Yeah. And every time I did connect with you, Tina, this was kind of the forefront of what you were going through.
Yeah.
Was this pressure to give birth naturally or schedule it?
Yeah.
So maybe you could fill our audience in on why that has been such a piece on your heart and mind.
Yeah. So I have two babies. Or have had two babies. They're not babies anymore. But I felt so much pressure with Henry to give birth naturally and at a birth center. So he was my first child. Honestly, I had no idea what I was doing or what I should expect. So I'm like, oh, okay, like my body is capable. Maybe I should give birth at a birth story. This, not birth story, birth center. This makes sense. And I should do it naturally, because I am strong and able and I can do this. So I had this pressure, not only from our wellness culture, but social media, but it was more so my like own internalized beliefs about what it means to do the birth the right way. And I don't really know where that came from, but that's just how I felt. There's this like unspoken narrative that if you really trust your body, you're strong and in tune with your body, then you should be able to birth your baby without any interventions, no medication, do it the natural way, do it in a peaceful environment, in a tub, all the things.
With spa music.
Right. And if you don't, or you can't, then your body is failing you. You're not strong enough. You didn't try, whatever. So again, with Henry, I just went along with the flow. I'm like, I'm going to do what I think is right. I'm going to go to the natural route with the birth center. But when I was actually in it, things did not go how I expected. It was actually really traumatizing. Henry got stuck. He was head down, but his like arm was like up above his head. And like, he basically got stuck and his arm like ripped through my part, right? I don't know if we're allowed to say that, but not on.
We'll stay general.
If you're watching the video, it was this right through. Okay. So at one point I was like pushing him out and I see like my husband was in the room, mother was in the room, my mother-in-law was in the room, lots of people. And then all of a sudden, like 6 midwives come in and are like, we're going to have to transfer her. Like, this baby is stuck. It's not going well. There's no progress. And that was really intense. He was finally delivered because they're like, you need to push this baby out in 2 minutes or we're calling an ambulance. And so I like pushed that MFer out. But then I couldn't deliver the placenta. And I remember this one midwife literally taking her entire arm. I don't even think she had a glove on, and shoving it in me and yanking out my placenta. A piece like ripped off, stayed in me. I had an infection. I had to be on IV antibiotics. Like, it was terrible.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to say, I'm not saying birth centers are wrong. Like, to each their own. Y'all choose what feels right for you. This is not a shame episode. What we're talking about is trusting your gut. I know a lot of people that have the most beautiful births at birth centers, have beautiful births at home, like don't have medical interventions. You do you. I'm just speaking my truth.
Well, and I think you're sharing the piece of us being mindful of expectations going into it. You're shattering the dream. It's not always this perfect picture.
It's not.
Anything can happen. And if we have lower expectations, and if our society has more real conversations about how things can go sideways, then our mental health stays a lot more protected when things do go sideways.
I love your therapist's take on this. Thank you for your emotional grounding, right? That's what that was, everyone. Rachel's therapizing us. Thank you. It is really helpful because it is about, like, the reality is this is not a perfect streamlined moment. Stuff is going to happen, and it can happen. And if it doesn't, cool beans. You now have a baby with very little interventions. Otherwise, you still could potentially have a baby or not have a baby, right? There's like so many ways this could go. I don't want to trigger any sort of like trauma here, but deep down, I should have trusted my gut. I should have gone with what I was really feeling. And something felt off leading up to that birth, and I should have trusted myself. But I ignored it because I thought, this is what it looks like. I should be doing it this way. Let's move forward. So in hindsight, I do see how that pressure, that like birthing naturally equals better actually pulled me away from what my body was really trying to tell me.
But then you did a good job listening to your body for the second baby.
Exactly.
Do you just want to jump and share that part? Because it kind of continues your story.
Well, we'll circle back because you share yours and then we'll flow into that because I want to hear yours. Otherwise, it's just me talking for 20 minutes.
So my first child was very similar to Tina's, except that I did end up with the emergency C-section at 2:00 in the morning with no memory of it from all the drugs. I also wanted birth to be organic. I felt like that was quote unquote best. And honestly, subconsciously, I felt that was superior.
Yeah.
And I think as you were sharing your story, I was really picking up on how often you both consciously and subconsciously use the word strong. I do think that's the messaging. Like we are stronger people if we can give birth a certain way, which means we're weaker if we have the C-section, right? Like there's always a flip side to every coin. So if the flip side to stronger is what? So when I had the C-section after a quote unquote failed induction, that's the medical term, the induction didn't take, I felt like I had failed. And I felt like I was a failure as a body and as a birthing human, not necessarily as a mom, but just as a human. Like my body is broken. I truly felt like my body was broken. And I even remember someone kind of telling me as I was healing through this and going through, like trying to wrap my brain around this, and I was in therapy and all that we'll get to. But I even remember like a friend kind of joking like, oh, Rachel doesn't deserve it to be called a push present. Like, that like stupid social norm where their partners give them a gift. Like Rachel's isn't like a push present. She didn't push.
Are you still friends with this person?
Unfortunately. But anyway, so anyway, it was said joking. It didn't realize, I don't think she realized how much it hurt because I don't think she realized, again, subconsciously how shocking it is to our minds and our bodies and our expectations when things don't go according to this magical plan.
Yeah.
And then I did trust my body more though after that with my second two, because one of the things that happened to me with the first was that I didn't feel like my body was ready to be induced. And it was my first child though. And I just went along with the doctor said, and I remember sitting there completely panicking the night before being like, I'm just not going to show up. If I don't show up, they can't induce me. Like they need me there. And I remember debating just no showing to the induction appointment because it just did not feel right.
I wonder what the cancellation fee is for that.
Right. To this day, I wish I had listened to myself. Absolutely. I could have still ended up with a C-section due to his positioning. Absolutely. Yeah. But I do wish I had listened to my gut. So the second one's around, I was determined to advocate for myself more. I hired a doula. I switched doctors because I didn't like the way that doctor treated me. And I got a lot of support and I did end up being able to. I wasn't sure if my body could, but I did end up being able to deliver vaginally. And honestly, it did really redeem my body trust and my trust in myself to advocate. I mean, I wish I could say that, oh, I just kept having C-sections and I felt great and I redeemed that without it. I do think, I mean, honestly, part of my story, the real deal is the redemption did come and the healing did come from being able to have the vaginal births. But now that it's been a long time, I mean, this C-section was 14 years ago. Like, I truly don't really care that much. I don't really think about it that much. It never crosses my mind. Like time has gone on. If someone had this conversation or said something about me being weak in the C-section, I would feel nothing. So a lot of this is also just like time heals the more space we have from that and the more space we have to work through our narratives.
Yeah.
But I do truly feel like it was a huge chapter of my body trust development and my beliefs in just the hierarchy of bodies, not only in society and in diet culture, but in birthing and the birthing experiences.
Yeah. This is why I wanted to like circle back to my second child, because it is like, well, ours are kind of reversed, right? You had the
they are
first and all the others second. And so for me, the second time around, I'm like, I have to do something different. Like I'm not doing that again. It also was one of those things like our insurance doesn't cover birth centers. And we paid cash for that, which is like,
what? That was one of the reasons I did not do the birth center with my first. You and I were working together. We know we were working. We weren't getting paid to birth at birth centers.
No. Yeah. So I'm like, oh my gosh. Anyways, insurance and finances were not the main motivator, but I'm like, I need to have a different story here. So I switched to an OB that I absolutely love. She's fabulous, very inclusive, patient centered, all the things I was really wanting. And the hospital that she delivered at literally was like a spa. Okay, it's fabulous.
And your insurance covered it, which is amazing.
And our insurance, it was in network. So like all the things are lining up. So basically everything's going smoothly, and we get to, I think it's maybe that 36 week, I don't remember, appointment where it's like checking where the baby's head is. Baby's head is up. So you have a breech baby. There is time for this baby to flip, but the baby is a larger baby. And so we're going to check. And literally I didn't know it was a girl, but like I felt her head right up in my sternum because I had the worst reflux. And my doctor like pointed it out and was like, this is her head. You will know if she flips, if this goes away.
Moves. Yeah.
And your reflux goes down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, cool. So the weeks go on. It's like 38 weeks. That baby's head is still there and it is obvious. And so she's like, what do you want to do? Here are your options. You could do an ECV, which basically is where they try to like manually turn the baby while they're still in your belly, or we can schedule a C-section. That like rocked my brain.
I remember you really going back and forth on that.
I don't know what I want, right? I'm like, my body is capable of having a head down baby, right? It's not my anatomy that can't hold a head down baby. So why is this baby head up? Right? So I had to really, it was not easy. I was actually really scared to have surgery because I've never had surgery before. I was worried about the recovery time because I have a toddler at home. And I knew that my husband had an upcoming job. And so luckily I scheduled like lots of support. My mom came out, so was here that could help. But it really was like messing with my brain. Ultimately, I ended up deciding to go with the scheduled C-section because the ECV didn't really feel right for me. I was like, if this baby is head up, there's a reason that they're head up. So, and my OB was like, I'm fabulous at C-sections. I suggest you do that, but you do you. I'm a really good C-sectioner. I'm like, okay. So I listened to my gut. I didn't do what I thought I should. I did what I knew my body was telling me to do and what felt grounded and safe for me and my baby. Scheduled the C-section. It was fabulous, y'all. Like, it was the most lovely experience ever. I knew exactly when this baby was going to be born. It was in the morning. They took me back. My husband came back. At one point, I was like, let me know when you cut into me. And they're like, your guts are on your stomach. Okay. So, like, we're already in. Your baby's about to be born in 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, what? This is crazy. And so they were like, my team was so gentle and amazing. And at one point, my anesthesiologist, I'm like, I'm feeling nauseous. And he was like, count to 2. And then I'm like, oh, I feel so nice. What's happening? So it was just all lovely. And like, I did push that baby out because like they took my guts out and sliced through like 6 layers of skin. That's some hard work there.
Yeah.
You know, it was also really special because like once my daughter was born, they like, obviously hey, here's your baby, blah, blah, blah. And then they handed her to my husband while they stitched me up. And he got to have this like really special time with her. I didn't want her like on my chest because my blood pressure was kind of weird in that moment. And I don't know, I felt like kind of nauseous a little bit. So I'm like, you just hold her, Drew. I'll like watch her. And it was like such a sweet moment that I feel like he deserves as well. one thing that I was excited about in like listening to my gut was later finding out when my OB came back and like visited me or whatever. And she was like, hey, I want to let you know, like, I'm proud of you for trusting yourself because during the birth, I get that you didn't realize this. We pulled her out, but actually had to push her back in because the umbilical cord was wrapped around her neck twice. And so we couldn't pull her out. And because it was wrapped around her neck, her cord, and it was so short. Once they unwrapped it, they're like, it's abnormally short. So this is the reason why she couldn't be head down, because one, it was wrapped around her neck, and two, it wasn't long enough to allow her to go head down. So if we would have
this
tried,
is what my baby needs right now.
yeah, if we would have tried for the ECV, we basically would have been strangling her.
Oh my God.
And it would have resulted into an emergency C-section right away with me getting knocked out,
yeah,
you know, going under anesthesia and having to like potentially have a huge panic and trauma associated with this. So
yeah,
I was really grateful that I trusted myself. I was proud of the decision I made, and I did birth her. Y'all, I did.
you did.
That's it. So I have this really cool birth tattoo now, my C-section scar that I show my kids, and I'm like, I will forever have this. And I love tattoos. So this is a perfect tattoo that I'll forever cherish.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
The one thing as you're talking that I just want to name real fast, and I don't have that much to say about it because we didn't prepare it, but I do have some friends who've lost their babies during the birth experience.
Yeah.
Whether they were stillbirth or something tragic happened. And that's a whole nother topic that we won't touch on. That's not our lived experience, but I do know this whole concept of body trust and trusting your body and trusting your baby is super, super complicated for those people. And
yeah,
I just wanted to name that because it was kind of hitting me like, oh, we're talking about body trust, but then we have healthy babies. Like that's an even harder conversation if something happens.
I know. And it is something that you're bringing to the surface where we are in this space speaking to our personal lived experiences.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we do recognize y'all who, even if you did trust your body, it didn't turn out in this way where, yeah, there is an alive baby, right? But your baby matters, right? You still deserve recognition.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Moving on.
Anyway.
So many subtle and not so subtle messages clearly going through Tina and I's minds about C-sections and birth.
Yeah.
Right. So we're kind of trying to name all of them and the ones that stuck with us. I shared mine, the one about like a push present stuck with me, or how many of my friends or moms I heard say like, well, I don't care as long as I don't have a C-section. I'm just glad I didn't have a C-section. Like that, like the C-section was the worst case scenario. And that was really hard for me as well to hear.
Right.
So I don't know what some of the ones were that you heard that bugged you.
When it was like, oh, my baby's breech, I have to have a C-section. Oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, okay. You know, or like afterwards, it's like telling them like, oh yeah, I had a C-section. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. But at least you didn't have to do any, like the hard part, which is the birth. And I'm like,
have you recovered from an incision?
My skin and I can't sit up and I'm having a hard time pushing poop out, because what you realize is that you need abs to push poop. Okay. So like, go shove it. Yeah. My birth center experience, I remember someone saying it like, at least you didn't end up in the hospital. That would have been terrible and a failure. And I'm like, I almost did end up there. And like, if I did, like, what is it? It doesn't make the birth any less valid.
Hospitals save lives sometimes. So it is what it is.
Or like trying to validate, like, well, at least you got the natural birth the first time and then you did the C-section after. I'm like, I don't understand. Who is tracking these things?
All right. I think the theme here is don't say the word at least when you're trying to validate someone. So word to our listeners and ourselves, if you're trying to comfort and validate someone, stay away from any sentences that say at least.
I mean, here's the comment. I would say, congratulations. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
Welcome to the parenting world.
How are you feeling?
Yeah. Like, Just stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Don't say anything.
Yeah.
What about the body stuff? What are some body shames? Because I think you and I both, like, we do live in different bodies. I live in a more like short and curvier body that has significantly changed in my birth years. So did you have any like birth
Yeah, I think
or body shaming?
around the C-section scar, a lot of people talked about not wanting to have, I don't know what it's called now. It's been so long. The little C-section scar tissue pooch
Oh,
that sometimes happens above
Yeah.
the scar. I remember a lot of people being like, "Oh, I just didn't want that," and I remember thinking that too. Like, well, I don't know if I want this on my body. Like, what if someone needs to see that part of my body again? Wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. Like, I remember these thoughts and then kind of countering them quickly. But I think a lot of it for me was about the C-section scar. And then, yeah, obviously all the conversations. I mean, I'm in Orange County. Like,
I know.
there's the baby boot camps, which I actually did like being able to work out with other moms when my kid was in a stroller, but not when the focus
community, right?
Yeah, exactly. When not when the focus would shift to like certain challenges or anything though. But yeah, it's all about getting the body back. It's all about getting the body back, wearing the bathing suit again. I think the one thing that bugs me now, thank goodness social media wasn't a big thing back then, but now I see all of these videos of moms in like the diaper trying to look real, but their stomach's already flat in the hospital room. Like kind of like doing this little like dance with their baby, being like, just keeping it real. And you're like, what? You look like a Barbie in a mesh diaper. I'm super confused right now. So like hashtag not real.
Not
so
real. No.
I think that's kind of the big messaging right now going on is like how it's okay to show a quote unquote real body when it's actually still a socially acceptable body. That's the big thing.
Body.
Yeah, that's the big thing I'm noticing that I'm glad wasn't around, but it was still around.
And this is the real deal, y'all. This is why I bring it up to you, Rachel, because you do live in a privileged body, right? So like it is not anything that you're necessarily earning. You are just
I just woke up.
Right. And so like did you get like, oh my gosh, your body bounced back? Like, what are you doing? What's the secret? And you're like, I just literally downed an entire bag of Cheetos and I have no idea what you're talking about. This is genetics here, right?
Not that I remember.
I know your children are old. Gosh, I'm still in it, right?
Yeah, I don't really remember.
For me, I live in a curvier body. And so like I didn't get, wow, your body bounced back, right? I didn't get any of those comments. I got like, you'll lose the baby weight eventually, or just give it time. Your body will return to where it was, right? No. Like I got those comments, or like, yeah, you gained so much weight with Audrey. And I was like,
people said that?
Because I did. I
don't care. You don't
I was just swollen, right? And
yeah.
The thing is, when people were saying that, I was still the same weight, right? It's like I was just the same weight. I just didn't have the belly, right? And so I'm not tracking my weight, but I'm like, I'm still wearing the same clothes. So like, if you had a problem with my body then, like, what are you thinking about it now? So it's like at that point, there's just like so many hormones and insecurities and whatever. And I'm like, hey, my body is not a project to fix. It's just weird, right? So recognizing that those that live in curvier or larger bodies, it like, there really is this like societal messaging where, yeah, I think it's like, don't worry, you'll eventually get there. And it's like, well, no, what if I don't? What if I don't want to? What if I don't want to torture myself like that? What if I want to just enjoy this space and really sit in the realm that like, yeah, my body's different now. And I do have the C-section pooch. I do. And I did all the things. I went to pelvic floor therapy and did scar tissue stuff. And that was really so it didn't attach to my bladder. And I didn't have incontinence, right? But like, don't force me to feel bad about my body because my body has gone through these two experiences with me, right? Yeah.
Diet culture is so insidious. And this kind of leans into the comparison culture.
Yeah.
Which is BFF with diet culture.
Right.
And comparison culture is the real thief of joy.
Yeah.
I mean, when you compare your recoveries, how your bodies respond to birth, how you respond to the labor, how you respond to afterwards, even how you handle things mentally. Like, I feel like there's even, we're not going to go into this, but there's even stigma about admitting that you have the baby blues or postpartum, right? It just, there's so much comparison and judgment when the truth is this entire topic is messy and nuanced and just gnarly. It's not a competition. It's just every person going through a very vulnerable journey. And so we just want to try to hold space for that.
Do you want to go into stats? Because Rachel and I love stats, and we feel like adding in like a bit of research and information is maybe helpful. I don't know. What do you think?
It is, because I think the one message that really ties it back to diet culture here is that there's a connection in any quick Google search or any doctor you talk to about the size of your body and your C-section rate, or your, propensity to have a C-section. So I think it's really hard to have this conversation about C-sections and natural births without naming the medical stigma that people in larger bodies experience.
Yeah.
So interestingly, I kind of looked it up to be like, I know this is what people say on the street, but what's the actual stat? So here's a quick stat for you from the American Medical Association. In 2023, 32% of live births were cesarean deliveries in the US, and 67% were vaginal deliveries. And certain stressors in patients' lives, such as having low income or limited access to prenatal care, can potentially lead to increased C-section rates. I liked that little stat because it did not talk about the bodies, but instead talked about all the other factors that go into it, which I think is really important for people to realize.
Social determinants of health, y'all. Like, that is a real thing that gives us access to health, right? And so financial stability and access to healthcare, that is involved. And so I love that stat. Even
going back to your point of like, we both priced out birth center versus hospital. I mean, now everyone has the access for that.
Yeah, I would have 1,000% if I gave birth in a hospital with Henry and that situation went down the same way. It would have been an emergency C-section. There would have been no way they would have let me keep going.
Right.
So,
right.
The next stats are related to increased C-sections for individuals that live in larger bodies. People in higher weight categories are significantly more likely to be recommended or guided towards cesarean delivery, regardless of the actual medical need. In 2013, a study in, how do you even say that?
Obstetrics and gynecology.
Obstetrics.
Just say OBGYN.
OBGYN found that individuals classified as, here's the O word, right, had a 2 times higher likelihood of having a planned C-section, even when there was no complication present.
So that just shows the stigma right there.
Yeah, it's bias, right?
Yeah.
If there is bias, there's not necessarily, I mean, there are some clinical implications, sure. Okay, but this is not just based on that, right?
There's what we call implicit bias.
Implicit bias.
Remember that, everyone? Back to science class or stats class? Yeah. Yeah, which, going into that, in 2015, a study in qualitative health research found that people in larger bodies often feel stigmatized, dismissed, or pressured into interventions during pregnancy and birth. And many of these participants described feeling that their providers were prepping for failure simply because of their weight. So they weren't even given the same options to trust their body and to speak up.
Yeah.
In one survey, 1 in 3 birthing people in larger bodies said they did not feel respected by their care team during birth, which is such a trauma in and of itself, to, again, not feel like you're being respected when you're trying to speak up for your body.
Yeah, the one thing for me that was so validating was my OB literally coming in after birthing Audrey and being like, I'm so proud of you. Hey, this could have gone really south. You did a great job, right? That is so validating and healing. It completed the circle of healing for me. And I couldn't even imagine not having that, right? So,
right.
Sad. You read the next stat. I won't steal that from you.
Well, okay. So here's all these stats about the medical interventions, right? What does that have to do with, or what's the impact of that on maternal mental health? Well, turns out, no surprise here, experiencing weight stigma during pregnancy is associated with higher levels of postpartum depression and anxiety,
No.
according to the Journal of Health Psychology in
What?
2017.
Can you imagine that?
Can you imagine? People who felt judged or shamed for their weight were also less likely to trust their providers, ask questions, and feel safe during labor, which can also impact birth outcomes and then also the recovery process and the mental health afterwards.
Yeah, this like leads to that cycle of misinformation, right? So it
Yeah.
leads to the belief that, hey, larger bodies cannot birth vaginally. And it's often not supported by evidence, right?
Well, and even your doctor coming in, that's amazing that your doctor said that. I've heard from people who I know who have said that their doctor came back in after the C-section, which was probably most likely given to them due to implicit bias over their
Right.
body size, and kind of said, did not say, good job, I'm proud of you. Instead, say, like, well, next time if you lose the weight or if you're at a lower weight, we can try again. So how
Yeah.
invalidating is that?
Yeah.
And now how much of a mental health impact is that? Because now the person felt like it was my fault.
It's
It
my
was my
fault. My body
fault.
is wrong, right?
Yes, it's my fault that this birth was the way it was. And then there goes and now you've got all these crazy hormones, you're nursing, you haven't slept, maybe you're not nursing. I mean, whatever it is, like the mental health impact is paramount there.
Way to drive people mentally
Yeah.
into a deep dark hole. So,
So the bottom line is that the belief that a larger body can't birth vaginally is not supported by evidence. In fact, the increased C-section rate can often be attributed to provider assumptions, not actual complications. And studies that we found as well have shown that when supported with respectful individualized care, people in larger bodies have comparable vaginal birth outcomes to those in smaller bodies. So the care you receive is paramount.
yeah.
Mhm.
So we're going to move into like the final section, which we've like kind of touched on, but we're going to do it and then we're going to wrap up, y'all. This has been a great episode so far, but we're going to kind of shift into, I mean, really piggyback into what does diet culture say about bodies, birth types, and the hierarchy of bodies. So we're going to wrap it up in this. So Rachel, what
Yeah.
grinds your gears?
I mean, I already spoke on it a little bit, but I think just the messaging out there, whether it's from friends, loved ones, or social media, is that there is a hierarchy of bodies and a hierarchy of how bodies should perform during birth. Whether it's how you look beforehand, during, after, whether it's how you are giving birth, where you choose to give birth, there's just such a hierarchy. And I think that really does impact how we handle things mentally and physically in the birth process and afterwards. I'm obviously a component for the mental health being the priority. And so I think that being able to speak up to and name the bias that you're receiving, or even the internal bias, like Tina and I have shared, like a lot of this was our own internal beliefs too.
Yeah.
We're not just blaming culture. It was us. We were doing it to ourselves.
Yeah.
And naming that and deconstructing this is kind of the reason we want to have this conversation. We all have to do our own work.
Exactly. I've done a lot of therapy unraveling that to come to this better space. I think diet culture like turns everything into a performance, including birth. It creates this hierarchy of birth types and bodies, whether there's the right way, look right, all these things. If you're thin, toned, glowing, maybe you're a little puffy, but like it's just because it's the pregnancy puff, right? It's still really cute and it's the gold standard. So anything outside of that, it's like, peace out, you're erased, I don't care about you, or you're not doing it right. As someone in like a curvier body, I don't live in a larger body, but I do have curves and a booty and all the things, and I'm short. I feel this deeply, y'all. There's this messaging like, well, if you're in a bigger body, like you are going to have some complications. It's just assumed, or you must have needed a C-section because of your body. It is a little bit bigger. And so like, you know, maybe if you had like a little bit more muscle, you would have been able to like push it out or something. So this automatic assumption that your birth story isn't valid or triumphant because it doesn't look like the ones that are created online from our society. Don't get me started on bounce back culture. I literally will break this computer screen. I didn't bounce back. I'm not going to bounce back. There is no bouncing here. I am here. I am present. My body is here, and it is not going to change. Yeah. My body has lived through the experiences of these two births, and I'm totally chill where it's at. It is significantly different. I had to buy an entire new wardrobe, right? Not quickly over time, but like it's not bouncing back. So yeah, diet culture is just telling us that like the best birth is the one that leaves like visible evidence, and you go this way and that way and then back to how you were. No, I have scars, I have stretch marks, I'm bigger, and you know what? I'm amazing.
And if it's okay, I'm just going to jump to kind of resources for those who want to hear more than just our stories. Like there's two, but if you need more support or you want to hear more people's stories or experiences, we have a couple guests who have shared their personal stories in previous episodes. Episodes 74, 75, and 76 cover the mental health piece, especially more deeply, and our other people's stories that we've interviewed. We also recommend Postpartum Support International that has a helpline, book lists, and support groups. And there are C-section books out there now. There was nothing 14 years ago. The one that I still recommend to clients, even though it was written a long, long time ago, I thought it was so validating. So for anyone listening, there is a little unknown book called Rebounding from Childbirth by Lynn Madsen. And it's beautiful. And it's got all different people's stories in it and how people have experienced either certain stigmas or prejudices or not been heard that led to a traumatic birth story. So just want to throw that out there if you want more stories that are not just Tina and I's.
Yeah. One thing I want to touch on before we wrap up is like, I really wish I would have known earlier that like support doesn't have to look like the traditional route. Therapy, right? Just like talking to someone can actually be life-changing.
And there's those of us that have a certification in perinatal mood disorders.
There you go. People specialize.
So we're here. We've done the work. We know how complicated it is.
Right. There's also like postpartum specific support groups, even like the Mommy and Me like walk places, like groups or whatever, text lines, peer-led communities, and if you suss it out, maybe some Instagram accounts run by licensed professionals who specialize in that area, like us.
Well, you know what? People often ask me, where do I even start? If you want, I'm not just saying this, but go to our page and then go under our followers, because we've tried to curate that. So feel free to use our page, not because, follow us and all that marketing stuff, but just honestly, if you need a list, look at our followers or who we follow. And that could be a good way to start working your algorithm there.
I think it's good for those like quiet 2 a.m. moments where you're like, no one's awake. I'm alone. I hate this time in my life right now because I'm really tired and my boobs hurt, or I don't want to feed this baby a bottle, whatever, Yeah. So, yeah. All right. We're wrapping up, y'all. We're wrapping up. So I know this conversation was a big one. It brings up a lot. Talking about birth brings up a lot of identity stuff, body image, trust, and trauma, right? We recognize that. So whether your story includes a C-section, a home birth, a birth center, a trauma experience, something totally unexpected, your experience is valid and we see you. There's no right way to bring a baby into this world, and there's definitely no gold star or medal for doing it.
Yeah. Our hope is that you feel a little less alone in whatever your story looks like. We've said it before, we'll say it again. Comparison is the thief of joy in birth and postpartum. And it's also the thief of healing from unmet expectations. So if you're struggling right now, emotionally or physically, know that you're not weak. You're human, and your genetics and your body just sometimes do things that maybe your Instagram feed didn't expect to happen. So you're navigating a very intense transition of life, and we just want to name that.
And if you're finding that you need more support, you're not a failure. You're actually strong and wise. And so we'll share some show notes and resources. We'll share resources in the show notes. And we encourage you to, take what you need from there. Trust your body, trust your story, trust your healing. You deserve that care.
Well, we'll see you next time, where we'll keep unpacking all the things that no one wants to talk about at play dates, but you definitely need to hear and talk about. So until then, take good care of yourselves and each other.
Oh, is that the new tagline? I don't know. Bye.
This episode of Mom Jeans was produced and edited by Rachel Coleman and Tina LeBoy.
Just a reminder, this episode is not a substitute for therapeutic counsel or nutrition advice.
Thank you to Jerry DePizzo for the music production.
You can find episode information and show notes at www.momjeansthepodcast.com.
Follow us on Instagram at momjeansthepodcast and join the Mom Jeans the Podcast Facebook group to find a community of mamas learning to love their bodies and discussing the episodes. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Mom Jeans. See you next time.